Have you ever said something in English that caused a British person to raise their eyebrow? Today, we're talking about what not to say in British English to avoid some seriously awkward situations. That's right, we are talking about making faux pas, or actually not making them. Hello, you wonderful people. My name is Roy, and I am your guide to mastering British English. So whether you're visiting the UK or chatting with British friends, there are a few things that you will want to avoid saying. Now, these might not be rude where you're from, or they might be, but they can definitely get you into a bit of trouble here. And to be honest, they're going to get worse and worse as they go along. And some of them have come from my experience in the classroom, listening to some of the mistakes and kind of embarrassing blunders that students have made, and some of them even my family have made. So keep watching to find out what we're talking about. So making a faux pas. Notice that I use the expression faux pas. Now, this is a borrowed expression from French, and it basically means something we say or do that is a real social mistake that causes a real kind of embarrassing moment, or it's not polite. So if you make a faux pas, you cause a big embarrassment. My wife likes to call them an oopsie moment, and some of her moments are pretty big oopsies, or they were anyway. So let's talk about the first big mistake to avoid, and I've got a real story which this relates to. Now, in the UK, pants doesn't refer to your outer clothing. Your outer clothing on your legs are often referred to as trousers. Pants, for British people, also called underpants, mean your underwear. So if you compliment somebody on their pants, they might get a bit confused. They might be saying like, oh, can you see them? Now, in American English, they commonly refer to trousers as pants, which is where this confusion comes from. So for British people, trousers, Americans, pants. Now, my American friend came to visit me in London, and we went out to a kind of cafe and we had some ice cream. Now, she chose chocolate ice cream, and that's quite important for this story. And halfway through, she dropped some chocolate ice cream on her trousers. But of course, Americans call them pants. And in the middle of this restaurant or cafe, she said, "Oh no, I've dirtied my pants." Which for her, she meant that she'd spilt some chocolate ice cream on her trousers. But for us, it sounded like maybe she'd had a bit of a toilet-related accident. And of course, it got worse because it was chocolate ice cream. She said, "I've dirtied my pants, they're all brown." And pretty much everybody in the restaurant or cafe started to laugh. So don't make that mistake in British English. The thing that we wear on our legs on the outside are called trousers, and underneath we call them pants or underpants. So the second one we're going to talk about is this word, fancy. Now, fancy has multiple meanings. It can mean quite smart or, chic, like a fancy party or a fancy suit. We also use it to talk about fancy dress, which is kind of wearing a costume, slightly different. So you may wear a fancy suit for an interview, but you wear fancy dress at a party like a Halloween party where you dress up like a vampire. You are dressing in a costume, you are wearing fancy dress. However, the meaning of fancy that I want to talk about that could cause a bit of an issue is different. Now, as a verb in British English, in a kind of slang way, we use it to mean desire or want. You'll commonly hear British people say, "I fancy a cuppa." That means I really want a cuppa. Or I fancy a curry tonight. I really want to eat a curry. However, we also use it to talk about people. And when we use it to talk about people, we often try to say that we have desire or sexual interest in that person. I fancy him or I fancy her. That means you are sexually interested in that person. So make sure that, for example, if a British person says, "I fancy a cup of tea," make sure you don't say, "I fancy you too." That could really cause a bit of embarrassment. It's just a light one just to be careful of. And it could cause an awkward situation if you're talking about a fancy suit or a fancy dress party, or you're talking about desiring a cup of tea and you use it wrongly. Now, the next one is something that actually happened to my wife and made her feel pretty embarrassed. Mutual friends of ours, they have some dogs and they decided to breed their dogs. In other words, their dogs had puppies. So, puppies is a word that we use to describe baby dogs. One puppy, two puppies. However, in English, sometimes we can refer to a woman's breasts as puppies. Now, in British English, there are a lot of slang terms used to describe breasts, but puppies is one of them. Now, once these dogs had given birth, my wife got really excited because she loves dogs and she particularly likes puppies. And of course, she texted my mutual friend, our mutual friend, and said to this woman, "I would like to play with your puppies." She's laughing in the background right now. You can probably hear her because she's actually watching this video. So literally, while she was saying that she wanted to play with the puppies and, have fun with these little dogs, what our mutual friend laughed about and found it very funny and started to tease my wife was that she basically said she wanted to play with her breasts. Be very careful. This one could be really embarrassing. My wife finds it funny now, but at the time, she felt very embarrassed. But we have, in British English, many different words for breasts, but this is one of them. So be very careful. Now, this one is another one which happened to another member of my family, and it caused great embarrassment. It relates to the TH sound, the sound in this case. So, in a modern British RP accent, we would say first, second, third. 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 We use that unvoiced TH at the start of the word third. However, what my family member said, who is Brazilian, he said turd. Turd is another word for feces or poo. So somebody asked him, was this his first time in the UK? And he said, no, sorry, it's my third time. Now, everybody at the bar actually laughed. You can hear my wife laughing again. Well, everybody at the bar laughed when he said it was my third time because it sounded like he needed to go to the toilet for a number 2. That's another way of saying a poo. So when he was trying to say, it's my third time in the UK, he actually told people that he desperately needed the toilet for something more than a wee. So be careful with this. Now, there are some native accents that also pronounce that word third as turd. I will say that. But as long as the accent is uniform, it makes sense. However, if you mispronounce the word third halfway through a modern British RP accent, well, then that can cause some embarrassment. The next one is a classic, and it's a little bit of a rude word. This is a swear word. So, to be pissed. Pissed. So, pissed, as I said, it's a rude word. Please don't use it in formal or polite situations. But down a pub, we could probably use it. Now, pissed in American English is commonly used to mean angry or annoyed. Oh, I'm so pissed. However, in British English, we use pissed to mean drunk. Extremely drunk. So if you have far too many beers, you are pissed or you get pissed. So be careful with this one. If you want to tell somebody that you were really annoyed, maybe you're talking with a friend because this is where this language may be more appropriate, and you wanted to say that you got really angry last night, don't say pissed. If you say, I got pissed last night, it sounds like you were down the pub for a very long time. If you want to say that you're annoyed in British English, say pissed off. Pissed off. I was so pissed off with my friend because he got pissed. But this one, again, it comes from a difference between British and American English. And the last one is something incredibly funny that happened to me in the classroom. Well, didn't happen to me, but a student said it anyway. So we have an expression in British English, which is to not feel one's self. To not feel oneself. So we often say, oh, I'm not feeling myself today. And it basically means you're not feeling very mentally well. Maybe you're feeling a bit psychologically unwell. You're feeling unwell. So maybe you get up in the morning and you call your boss and say, I'm really not feeling myself today. I don't think I can come to work. It basically means that you are ill or unwell, specifically relating to mental health. To not feel oneself. And notice I keep saying the word not. And this is the embarrassing situation. So if we say to not feel oneself, it commonly relates to illness or feeling unwell. But if you say, I feel myself, there's something slightly different. So this is the story, a true story. My student came in one day, they weren't feeling very well. I asked them what was wrong and they explained their symptoms and I said, you're not feeling yourself. So they learnt the expression. They said, yes, teacher, I'm not feeling myself today. And the student called off sick a few days telling me that they were not feeling themselves. Fine. However, when they were feeling a bit better, they came into the classroom and declared, today, teacher, I am feeling myself. Now, why is this embarrassing? Well, in the positive, it sounds more sexual and it sounds a bit more like maybe related to masturbation. So be very, very careful with that one. In the negative, it's absolutely fine, but in the positive, it does sound a bit more sexual. So yeah, that's a bit of a dangerous one. If you want to avoid a bit of an embarrassment and want to say something similar, you could say something like, I'm feeling more like myself today. Don't use it without the words more or like, because it could be misunderstood and it could be embarrassing. So there you have it, some fantastic things to avoid when speaking British English if you don't want to end up in a pretty sticky situation or making those faux pas. Which mistakes surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments below, and let me know any faux pas you've made in your life. And please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more tips on speaking British English. Please do share this video with somebody who might need a crash course in avoiding these awkward situations. But from me today, I just want to say thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Bye!